Rank 1. The trainee. There is no sign on the building. The address they gave you led to a parking lot in Northern Virginia. A man in a gray blazer walked you inside without saying your name out loud? Not once. You are about to learn a word that will define the next 28 years of your life. You will never be able to explain those years to anyone who loves you. You are 24 years old. You have a degree in political science and a minor in Farsi because your advisor said it would open doors. He had no idea which doors. Neither did you. This is the door. The instructor at the front of the room does not introduce himself. He writes one word on the whiteboard: HUMINT. Human intelligence. He draws a circle around it. He says everything the satellites can see, every phone call the computers can intercept, every signal in the sky that a machine can process. None of it tells you what a person is thinking. None of it tells you why. None of it tells you what a man will do at 2 a.m. when he believes nobody is watching. Only another human can tell you that. That is your job. You learn the asset development cycle: spot, assess, develop, recruit, handle. 5 words that sound clean on paper. You will spend the next 20 years learning how dirty they are in practice. You learn elicitation, the art of drawing information out of a person without them realizing they are giving it. You learn how to ask a question that sounds like curiosity but is architecture. Designed 3 exchanges in advance, leading somewhere the other person cannot see. You learn surveillance detection routes, how to walk a city for 90 minutes before a meeting to confirm nobody is behind you, how to abort, how to act normal while doing none of this normally. You learn to write intelligence reports, short, precise, no adjectives. The adjectives are for novelists. You are not a novelist. You are a collector. You describe what was said, by whom, in what context, and why it matters to the people who will read it in a building you are not cleared to enter yet. You graduate. They give you a posting. They give you a cover. They tell you not to tell your family what you actually do. You call your mother that night and tell her you got a government job in foreign affairs. She says she's proud of you. You say thank you. You are already learning to live in 2 registers at once. The thing you say and the thing that is true. You will get very good at this. That is not entirely a good thing. Rank 2. The junior case officer. Your first posting is an embassy in a city you are not allowed to name in writing. Officially, you are a consular officer. You process visa applications. You attend receptions. You shake hands with government ministers and business leaders and military attachés, and you smile and you listen and you remember every single thing. Not because you have a good memory, because you have been trained to treat every conversation as a collection opportunity. Your real job begins after the receptions. You are given a list of targets, not people to hurt, people to assess. A mid-level official in the foreign ministry who travels more than his salary should allow. A military officer who drinks at a specific bar on Thursday nights and complains about his commanders. A telecommunications engineer with access to infrastructure that your government very much wants to understand. You study them before you ever speak to them. You learn their routines, their families, their finances, their frustrations. You are building a map of a human being, every vulnerability, every want, every fear. You are looking for the door. Your first approach takes 6 weeks of preparation. You arrange to meet the foreign ministry official at a conference. Accidentally. You have a reason to be there. He has a reason to be there. The conversation lasts 11 minutes. You learn 3 things about him that were not in the file. You file a cable to headquarters that night. Your supervisor calls it promising. You are promising. That is a complicated thing to be in this profession. Rank 3. The case officer. 2 years in. You have recruited your first asset. You have not had a conversation in 4 months where you were completely yourself. You are not sure you remember exactly what that feels like. His name is not what you call him in your cables. In your cables, he has a cryptonym. 7 letters that stand in for a human being with a wife and 2 daughters and a mortgage and a government job that gives him access to things your government wants to know. You recruited him over 8 months. Coffee became lunch, lunch became dinner, dinner became a conversation where you asked him directly, not aggressively, carefully. You had identified his motivation months earlier. Money. It is money for most of them, not ideology, not conscience, not adventure, money. A daughter needs a medical procedure. A father has debts. The salary from the foreign ministry does not cover the life he told himself he would have. You offered to help. No strings attached. Except there were always strings. Both of you knew that. Neither of you said it. He passes you documents now, photographs of reports he was never supposed to take home. You meet him in locations that change every time: a parking garage, a bookstore, a park bench on a Tuesday afternoon when the rain keeps other people inside. The meetings last less than 10 minutes. You have rehearsed every second of them. You must know everything about him. You must care about nothing that makes you hesitate. You must carry his life in your hands and file the cable anyway, because that is exactly what you do. If your operation is compromised, if a mole in your agency sells his name, if your surveillance detection was imperfect just once, he does not get fired. He does not get arrested in the way that people in free countries get arrested. He disappears. His family gets a visit. The visit does not go well. You think about this sometimes at night. You think about his daughters. You think about whether the intelligence he provides is worth the risk you are asking him to carry. You conclude that it is. You have to conclude that. The alternative is not something the job allows you to hold for very long. You file your cables. Headquarters is satisfied. You are performing well. You are learning the most important skill in the profession. You are learning to separate what you feel from what you do. You have a word for what you do to people in this profession. You develop them. That is a very clean word for a very complicated thing. Rank 4, the interrogator. 5 years in. They assign you to a facility that does not appear on any publicly accessible map. You are not in a foreign embassy anymore. No receptions. No cover identity. No slow, careful work of building a friendship over 8 months. This is the other side of HUMINT. The side that happens when the relationship has already ended badly, when the person across the table was caught, when the clock has a number on it and your government needs information before that number reaches 0. The room is small, 1 table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner that records everything. You are told this before you enter. You are told it so you remember that every word you say is a document. Your first subject is a man who entered the country on a false passport and was picked up at a border crossing with documents he should not have had. He speaks 4 languages. You speak 2 of them. He knows why he is here. You know why he is here. The only question is which one of you will acknowledge it first. You do not shout. You do not threaten. The training was very clear about this, and the training was correct, not for moral reasons, for practical ones. A frightened person tells you what they think you want to hear. A frightened person manufactures details to make the fear stop. What you need is not words. What you need is true words. Those are harder to get and require a completely different set of tools. You build rapport. You find the point of agreement. Every person, regardless of what they have done, has something they believe is reasonable about themselves. You find that thing and you stand next to it. You do not lie about who you are. You do not pretend to be his friend. You simply locate the version of this conversation where he decides that telling you is less costly than not telling you. Sometimes it works in an hour. Sometimes it takes 3 days. Sometimes it does not work at all, and you write a report that says the subject was uncooperative, and you move on. The ones that do not work stay with you longer than the ones that do. You become very good at reading people in a room. Not their words, their bodies. The breath that shortens when you mention a specific name. The stillness that replaces movement when you are getting close to something real. You learn to follow stillness the way a hunting dog follows a scent. You go home after these sessions and you sit in your kitchen and you eat whatever is in the refrigerator and you do not think about the room. Then you think about it, you go to bed, you do it again the next day. You do not talk about this work with anyone outside the facility. You will not talk about it for the rest of your life. It will sit in a part of you that has no name and take up space that used to belong to something else. Rank 5, the Chief of Base. 10 years in. You run a base now. A base is a small operational hub. Not a full station, not an embassy. A forward position in a city that matters to your government and that has no official American presence worth acknowledging. You have 6 officers under you, local support staff whose loyalty you trust as far as the vetting allows. A budget that comes through channels that do not appear on any public ledger. You make decisions every day that you cannot write down in the order in which they actually happened. The real sequence of events and the official cable traffic are 2 different documents. Both are true. Neither is complete. You learned early that intelligence reporting is the art of the relevant omission. A source flags that a foreign intelligence service has identified one of your officers. Not confirmed. Possible. You have 48 hours to decide whether to pull him out or keep him in place. Pulling him out burns the cover. Keeping him in risks the man. You make the call. You keep him in with modified protocols. He is fine. The threat assessment was wrong. You made the right call. You will never stop second-guessing it. That is the tax. The job does not refund it when you're right. You start to understand something about this profession that nobody in the training said directly. The higher you go, the further the consequences travel from your desk. A junior officer makes a bad approach. One relationship is burned. A chief of base makes a bad call. 6 officers are exposed. A network of assets is compromised. People who trusted the United States government with their lives find out what that trust was worth. You hope you never have to find out exactly what that is worth. You have been in this career for a decade. You have attended 2 memorial services for officers who died in the field. Both funerals were small. Both were listed in the press as accidents. Both were not. Rank 6. The Chief of Station. 15 years in. The Chief of Station is the senior intelligence officer in an entire country. Every HUMINT operation, every asset, every source relationship, every covert action in that country flows through you. You meet with the ambassador every morning. You liaise with local intelligence services, some of whom are genuine partners, some of whom report your conversations to the very people you are collecting against. You have learned to calibrate every word in every room. You are responsible for sources you have never met. Officers recruited them before you arrived. You inherited the relationships along with the risks. One of those sources has been active for 11 years. He has provided intelligence that changed the outcome of 2 separate policy decisions. He has also been asking for more money for 3 years, and each year the ask gets larger. You know what larger asks mean. They mean fear. They mean the risk is rising on his end, and he is recalibrating what his life is worth. You approve a modest increase. You file the justification. Headquarters approves it. 3 months later, he goes quiet. You send a signal, no response. You send a second signal through a different channel. Silence. A local contact surfaces a report 2 weeks later. He was arrested. The circumstances are unclear. The charges are not intelligence-related on paper. But the timing is not a coincidence, and you know it, and everyone in your chain of command knows it, and nobody says it in writing. You write a memo. Careful language. Passive constructions. You note that the source relationship has been terminated due to circumstances beyond operational control. You do not write what you know. That somewhere in a country you are stationed to protect interests against, a man who trusted your agency is in a cell because this business is not as controlled as the cables make it look. You sit with that. You carry it to the next meeting. You carry it home. You carry it to the next posting. That is the weight no promotion removes. Rank 7. The Deputy Director of Operations. 20 years in. You are back at headquarters. You manage an entire directorate now. Hundreds of officers in dozens of countries report up through a chain that ends at your desk. The intelligence product from every HUMINT operation in your portfolio passes through your office before it goes to the director, to the National Security Council, to the President's daily brief. You sit in rooms with people who make decisions based on what your officers collect. You watch those decisions get made. Sometimes the intelligence is right and the decision reflects it, and things improve in a way that nobody outside this building will ever know you had a hand in. Sometimes the intelligence is right and the decision ignores it. Sometimes the intelligence is wrong and the decision reflects it, and you learn about the consequence in a cable 3 weeks later. You have stopped being surprised by any of these outcomes. You manage a workforce that is burning out faster than it can be replaced. The officers in the field are doing the same work they have always done in an environment that has become exponentially more dangerous. Facial recognition at every border. Cell phone tracking that cannot be turned off. Cameras on every corner of every city your officers operate in. The tradecraft that worked in 1985 requires 3 times the resources and 10 times the counterintelligence sophistication to execute today. You fight for resources in budget meetings with people who have never run a source. You explain to congressional oversight committees in rooms with no recording devices why the things you need to do to keep this country safe require authorities that would disturb the people who elected those committees. You give those briefings, you answer the questions, you watch the faces, the ones who want plausible deniability, the ones who are genuinely troubled. You give them both what they need to keep the machine running. The machine keeps running. You get a cable on a Wednesday morning. An asset in a country you cannot name was arrested on Thursday. Not compromised. Arrested. The difference matters legally. It does not matter to him. You authorized his recruitment 3 postings ago. You have never met him. His cryptonym is 7 letters. You say them to yourself in the car on the way home. You do not say them out loud. You have not said a cryptonym out loud in 20 years. Some habits protect people who are no longer there to protect. Your marriage survived. That surprises you still. 20 years of postings and cover stories and absences that could not be explained. Your spouse knew enough to know not to ask certain questions. You love them for that. You still do. But you are aware that what you protected by not answering those questions was the work, not the relationship. The work, you sit with that too. Rank 8, the ghost. 28 years, you retire. The ceremony is in a conference room on the 4th floor. 50 people attend. Some of them you know by their real names. Some of them you have only ever known by their cryptonyms. That is not unusual in this building. The director gives a speech about sacrifice and service and the things that cannot be said in public. You receive a medal that will live in a drawer. A star will be added to the memorial wall in the lobby. Not for you, not yet. But you have known people whose stars are already there. You know what those stars cost. You move to a house in a quiet part of Virginia. The house is pleasant, the neighborhood is safe. There is a coffee shop 3 blocks away where the owner does not know your name or your history, or the fact that the man reading the paper in the corner window spent 28 years professionally understanding how to read people and use what he finds. The tradecraft is in your body now. You check the locks twice. You sit facing the door. You notice the car that has been on your street for 3 days. You run routes that make no logical sense to anyone watching. Your neighbor thinks you are eccentric. That is fine. Eccentric is a good cover. You still do it in the coffee shop. You cannot stop. You sit and you watch the room and you catalog. The couple in the back arguing in tones too low for anyone else to catch. The man at the counter who checks his phone every 40 seconds. The woman who sat down facing the door and positioned herself so no one could approach from behind. You recognize her. Not her face. Her training. You do not approach her. There is a file somewhere in a building you no longer have access to. It contains every operation you ran, every asset you recruited, every cable you filed, every decision that had a human being's life on one side of the scale. That file is classified at a level that means it will not be seen by the public in your lifetime. Possibly not in your children's lifetime. You will never be able to explain what you did. Not fully. Not honestly. Not in the way that would let the people who love you understand who you actually were for 28 years. Your assets are scattered. Some are safe. Some were resettled in the United States under programs that do not officially exist. Some did not make it out. You know which ones. You remember their cryptonyms. You remember the meetings in parking garages and park benches in the rain. You remember the moment each one of them crossed a line they could never uncross. For you, for their country, for money, for ideology, for all the complicated reasons people betray the world they know, for a world someone else described to them. You hope you were worth it to them. You are not sure you have the right to hope that. Somewhere right now, in a classroom with no windows, a 24-year-old with a political science degree is sitting in a plastic chair and watching an instructor write one word on a whiteboard. They are thinking about service, about meaning, about doing something that matters in ways that most people will never understand. They are not thinking about the assets who did not make it out. They are not thinking about the marriages that went quiet. They are not thinking about the weight of a decision that had a man's life on one side of the scale. They will learn. They always do. The cycle continues.